And just like that, the stream is live. Hello, everyone. We are in the pre-show for our A+ Core 1, which is the 220-1001 study group. We are getting the last few things together. If you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward 10 minutes ahead. And of course, we will always have the exact timestamps available for you in the YouTube description. So you can always go to that description page. Let's post some things to the chat rooms so they know we're here. If you are watching this over on the YouTube side, you may want to go to professormesser.com/live because there's a live stream chat there. There's a live stream and the chat. There's both of those things. So let's do a quick camera check. There's a camera check right there. Hi, everybody. Hi. Hi. There's camera 2. Camera 3 is in front of me. Camera 4. Camera 4. We need something on camera 4. We'll just put this thing up on camera 4. Camera 4 is there. So it all works. Welcome, everybody. Let's see, make sure that YouTube is seeing that I am indeed on and working, because that's pretty important. Yes, there are concurrent viewers. Hi, everybody. And for those of you that are in the chat room, if you could just give me a little quality assurance check. How's the video? How's the audio? Is everything in sync? Does everything look okay? And if it does, then we're fine. If it doesn't, I'm not sure what we're going to do. Who knows what happens after that? So let's make sure that works fine. I see Massachusetts is here. Alex is here. Thank you. Chat room says it sounds great. It looks good. It sounds good. We're going to go with that. Let's maintain that level of this. That's JJ says it looks good, senor. Gracias, JJ. I need to be sure. Does this work? Yes, it does. Things are working. So we got 2, count them, 2 A+ study groups this week. 2 of them. Saudi Arabia is checking in. Iceberg, welcome. There is this is all, by the way, a big change starting now. You're at the beginning of something big, everybody. Well, it's not that big. You're at the beginning of a change. So starting today, we have separated out the 2 exams of A+. So on Tuesday, I'm doing this live stream for the Core 1 exam, or the 220-1001 exam. And then on Thursday, all of the questions will be for the 220-1002, or the Core 2 exam. So we now are very focused. If you are studying for a specific A+ certification exam, this will focus, laser focus, right on what you're trying to do. California's here. Saudi's here. Massachusetts is here. Folks are in the chat room. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We're going to do tons of Q&A. If you are watching this on the YouTube side, just a reminder, the live stream is at professormesser.com/live. And that also is a live chat. So that's pretty important too. Hey, London. Hey, London. London. There is Washington has checked into the chat room. Washington. I'm guessing state, because you did not say it was a District of Columbia. So Washington is one Washington and the other Washington? No, I think they're both the same. They're both whatever it is that you do there. For the same reason February is not February, although people do say February. February. Now there's the third R. February. Well, the Core 2 videos be posted soon, as well as more Core 1 videos. Soon is a relative term, Neil. I'm looking at as soon as a relative term. I'm going as fast as I can. I literally edited 3 videos this morning. I have about 10 more in the hopper. And then I'm constantly shooting new video. So I have this sort of ongoing list of videos that has to be edited, but at the same time I'm shooting and editing, sort of interlacing there. So I've always got some there, because some days there's a thunderstorm, my throat's not feeling good. I'm talking to you about A+. Nobody wants to hear that. So instead of recording new video, which will be there for eternity of me talking like this, instead I edit and post. And you'll notice a lot of things have not been edited. I've been just in here grinding away, and I usually do a chunk of edits at a time. So the very slow, bad answer to your question is yes, there will be videos posted. They're posted as I do them. There's no formal production schedule. Nobody's here. There's nobody here. It's me. So I'm the one sort of pushing myself to do this. And of course, there's a bunch of other things going on in my world. So I try to get them done, get them out, get them done, get them out. I want them done as quickly as possible. I would have them all done tomorrow if I could. I think that would be great. But these things do take time. I am almost done shooting Core 1. So that should give you some idea. I probably have 3 or 4 more days of shooting, of actual sitting in this room and shooting video to be completely through those videos. So I know that doesn't help because there's no time frames associated with that. I still have to shoot those. I still have to edit those. I still have to post those. There's content that has to be written. So I'm getting there. Yeah, fortunately, the 900 series is very similar to the 1000 series. So some of that will definitely overlap. How are we on time? I don't have a clock in front of me anymore. I changed things on my screen. It's over here now. And I'm not looking over there. So we're getting there. Well, thank you, Anna. I appreciate you watching them. I wish I could get them done so much faster. I have other things I want to do. I have other things I have planned that I've been working on, that I have kind of sketched out, that I have written up, that I think you will like, but I can't get to those until I finish these. So it's sort of a weird combination of things. We'll talk probably at the beginning of the after show of how do you study for a 1000 series exam when there's no 1000 series exam things to study from. So we'll talk a little bit about that because there is a way. There's a method to the madness. The study group starts in 3 minutes, everybody. 3 minutes, Mr. Sinatra. We'll be getting started. Oh, there's so much happening here. I don't know why I would do this to myself, but I have projects that are sort of overlapping projects. It's a little bit weird. I don't know why I do that to myself, but here we are, me doing this. So it works out. It's okay. It's good to have things happening. It would be very bad if I was here and said, nothing's going on. I don't have anything to do. That would be very bad. That'd be super bad if I was in that condition, but I'm not, thanks to you. So live questions, professormesser.com/QA, pop open that and you'll go to live question. We'll talk about that at the beginning anyway. Don't worry. We haven't started yet. So you're not late. You're literally 2 minutes and 10 seconds early. So how you like that? So we'll get there. Let's get this going. That looks good. Let's go to the next slide. That looks fine. Okay. Welcome. Hello, everybody. We're getting started in just a minute or two. Thank you for being here. We've got all 1001, 220 1001, the Core 1. They're calling it now. We call it a different name every time they update the certification. Now it's the Core 1. Namibia, welcome. Oh, good. Got the link. Very nice. Is it possible to take the A+ test and get the results for free? I'm retired. Just want to see if I can pass it. Nope. There's not a way to do that. Although there's a lot of sample tests that you could take out of books and online and other places. So you could sort of take that for free. I will have here eventually, once I get these videos done, some sample tests that I hope will accurately mirror the actual exam. That's my goal. So you technically, I want it so that you could take those and really feel how you did with that. So we'll figure it out. There is an upgrade process for the course notes. Yes. If you already have the 900 series course notes, you're thinking, I need to shift gears. If that's what you really, really, really want to do, there is an upgrade path. Just log into your member login at professormesser.com/members. And there's an upgrade link. You only pay 50% the cost. It's half off for an upgrade. So you don't have to pay the full price again. So it helps. So what's new in this 900 series? Oh, well, that's a good question. One we'll talk about in the after show. I'll go through it in detail if you'd like. I'll show you exactly what's new. In fact, we got time for that. We could do that. So that's in the second part of this live stream. We'll do a second hour. So in hour number 2, we'll do that. No problem. I think it's time to get started, though. It's top of the hour. Let's see if this works. It does. So here we go, everybody. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the February 2019 Professor Messer A+ 221001 Core 1 study group. It's got a longer and longer title because this is the very first video study group that we are doing where we are separating out the two A+ exams. So if you're here ready to watch and learn for the information that is in the 221001 objective list, this would also be called the Core 1, is what CompTIA is calling this. It's an exam that has not even been out a month yet, but I thought now would be a good time to move over. If you're someone who's studying for the 900 series exam, much of this content today would apply to you. Some of it will not. But I have 3 years worth of 900 series course videos and study group videos that you can go through. So for those of you wanting 221002, the Core 2 exam, in 2 days, we'll do a live stream for you. So we do 2 of them this week. That's not bothering me at all. No, perfectly normal, perfectly fine. It's a little busy here. There's twice as much content to create, but that's okay. I think now that I've got it done, all the content's been created, now it's easy to kind of just add on to every week. So I think we'll be all right. And I like doing the live streams. This works out good for everybody, I think. Thank you for being here. Those of you that are here live, thank you for being here. If you aren't here live, if you're watching this on a replay, go to professormesser.com, and there's a calendar link at the top, or you can go to professormesser.com/calendar, and you can find out when the next live event is going to be, because they're fun. We get to talk in the chat room. We'll do the call-in show afterwards where you can participate live. I'll take questions from the chat room as well. Don't forget to subscribe on the YouTube. If you're waiting for more 221001 videos, you want to be informed the moment I upload these videos, go to professormesser.com/YouTube, subscribe to YouTube, which, by the way, everybody wants you to subscribe to their channel. That's because it's really important. It does help us get eyeballs over on the folks at Google, on the folks over at the YouTube area. And it's nice to have that support from YouTube because they know that you're supporting what we're doing. There's also a little bell you can click. You know about that. So that the moment I upload a video, you'll be informed about that. Also, the pop quiz questions. Right now, we're still in the 900 cents piece pop quiz questions on that. The 900 pop quiz questions are still coming out on Twitter. We'll be converting those over a little bit later. I want to have video available for that. So make sure you've got all of those things available as well. So we got a few things that we can work through and get through all of those little pieces. Let's have a look at our options and what we have available on this. By the way, in this first hour, I'm going to be talking to you about continuing education units. That's something that will be useful for you. You do need to know about these. We will talk more about CEUs, but if you're somebody who is collecting CEUs to renew your certification, and you may not be, but some of you are. So if you are, you can, of course, go to the CompTIA website. It'll tell you all about CEUs. You'll learn all about it. And somewhere in this first hour, I will give you a code, and I'll give you instructions how you can earn a 1-hour webinar CEU from me. So a little bit of something for everybody to be able to do that. Let's talk about what we're doing with these A+ exams, because a lot of things have changed. The 220901 and 902 are still available. If you're somebody who is wanting to take the 220901 and the 220902, they're there. You can absolutely have those exams and take them. This is not going to be the study group for you, but perhaps this will be something that you can work with if you've already been studying for this, because this has been out since 2015, December 15th, 2015. This goes away on July 31st, though. So here's your balancing act. You have to be able to either complete the 900 series by July 31st, or that's it. You don't take it anymore. You have to then move over to the 1000 series. That's a little bit of a challenge for a lot of people. If I was taking the both A+ exams right now, in my world, I don't know if I'd be able to finish them by July 31st. Some people can absolutely finish them by July 31st. You should really look at the calendar, look at what's happening, see if this makes sense to you. And if you're not going to be able to get it done by July 31st, don't put that kind of pressure on yourself. You may want to shift over to the 1000 series exams, because those came out less than a month ago. These are brand new exams. Well, the content, very similar to the 900 series. The exam itself is brand new. So this is what they call the 221,001 and the 221,002. These are also called the Core 1 and the Core 2 by CompTIA. Released on January 15th, 2019. And I see that the screen's doing funny things there. We're going to try to address that in just a moment, by the way. I see it kind of flickering on my side. Things going by there. The 1001 and 1002 is effectively the same specifications as the 900 series. There's really no difference in the number of questions you get. There's no difference in how much time the exam is, and even the grading scale is exactly the same. So there's really not much here that is different when you sit down to take the exam. The entire exam taking process is practically identical. And content-wise, not much difference, but enough difference that you need to be sure you're studying for the right content. You really should not be studying the 900 series content and going in to take the 1000 series exam. That could be bad. You do not want to do that. So make sure for the 221,001, 221,002, notice 21% of the exam objectives are new on the Core 1. 23% of the exam objectives are new on the 1002 exam. So just about 20% difference. That's enough that could cause you problems on the exam. So pretty important to be able to know what those are. The structure of the exam has changed a bit as well. Here's the structure and what we're looking at for this. The 221,002 handles mobile devices, networking hardware, virtualization, cloud computing, and hardware network troubleshooting. The 1002, the 221,002, the Core 2, is operating systems, security, software troubleshooting, and operational procedures. So almost exactly the same type of format. Not much difference between them, but enough of a difference. So again, if you're studying for the 221,001 and 221,002, I really recommend you study from materials specifically written for that exam. That will make a very big difference for you. I am recording this study group on the podcast side. I haven't decided where to separate this out in a separate podcast or put it into a single A+ podcast. We'll figure that out, I guess, today. Now's the time. You can find out more about that at professormesser.com/podcast. You'll find everything there. We're going to do live Q&A here today, though. Let's get to that. And if you want to follow along, you want to answer with me, make sure you pop open a new browser window and go to professormesser.com/QA. You might also download an app for your mobile device. This is an app called the Socrative Student app. The Socrative Student app will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word. So make sure you have exactly what's there whenever you start trying to figure out, what are we going to do? How do we answer these questions? How does it work? I think most of you are just popping open a new window and going to professormesser.com/QA. And if you do that, a question will be waiting for you. Here's your first question of the day, which is really what we call our rewind question. This is a question from last month. Let's see if you remember what the answer is. The question asks, which of these addresses should not be used on an internal IP network? Which of these addresses should not, all in capital letters, which they often do on the exam so that they make sure you see that. They don't do a lot of not questions on the exam, though, but I did one here. So already we're off the rails just a little bit. Which of these addresses should not be used on an internal IP network? Would it be 172.29.18.7? Would it be 10.11.12.13? Would it be 192.168.192.168? Would it be 172.14.15.16? Would it be 10.254.254.254? So, well, one of those would not be used or on an internal IP network. I probably should not be used. I guess technically you could use it. It's a really bad idea. You should know what I'm asking about when you look at these. And you can see we're not even quite sure. Already 76 of you have answered and 43% of you say 10.254.254.254. We've got other answers in here. The idea, of course, is that we do not want to put any answers in the chat room. You don't want to put any hints in the chat room. We're going to pretend we're taking this all at the same time. This is also one where we have to kind of understand what we're asking. We're talking about an internal IP network. Which one is it that you think we should be focusing on here that would not be used on an internal IP network? Well, the key to this question, by the way, is that you want to be able to answer the question by going to professormesser.com/QA to answer that question. So if you do look at this question, you'll notice I'm asking you about an internal IP network. That's because there are a series of IP addresses that have specifically been created just for IP networks. And you can see what they are right here. Everything in the 10 range, 10.0.0.0 through 10.255.255.255 is what we call an internal network. These are documented, by the way, in something called a request for comment number 1918. That's an RFC 1918. Sometimes you'll hear this referred to as, I need an RFC 1918 address. So I don't know why somebody would say that, but they do. So there is definitely a concern there. The IP address range also you could use is 172.16.0.0 through 172.31.255.255. And lastly, the range 192.168. And you can see it's really the last two numbers there are the ones we have to worry about. So if we look at our private addresses, here they are. If we go back to that list, 172.29.18.7, well, we know 172.16 through 172.31 are valid internal addresses. That would be a valid internal address. 10.11.12.13, anything starting with a 10 is a valid internal address, which means that both B and E would be valid internal addresses. 192.168, anything starting with 192.168 is a valid internal address, which leaves the only other option, 172.14.15.16, does not fall in the range, 172.16 through 172.31. So we know based on that, the only answer that would be something used externally and not used on an internal network is D, 172.14.15.16. 21% of you got that one right. Sorry about that. That's not what we wanted. We didn't want that one to be an issue, but there it is. That's the answer we were looking for these. So hopefully, if you're not familiar with the networking part of the 221,001, this is definitely a question you would want on the 221,001 exam. And there are videos out there already that you can reference to look at those. Let's do some Q&A with this, though. I'm going to quickly, though, before we do that, I'm going to try to fix that flickering problem that we're seeing. We're going to do that in real time, which is exactly, by the way, how you want to do things on a live stream, by the way. That is the situation you really want to be in when you're doing something live, is figuring out, how do I troubleshoot this technical issue? I think I'm having a problem with the synchronization between my HDMI to SDI converter. How you like that? All the video in the studio is done through coax, through SDI. It's a standardized format. And there is an HDMI setup here, and I'm going to power it down. This is my technical skills here, just so you're watching. I'm going to turn it off and back on again. So it works every time, right? Isn't that how it's supposed to work? So this is me actually controlling all of the power for all of these systems right here live, all from this one screen. I've got power distribution units that do that. Now I'm going to unplug my laptop from that video, and we're going to plug it back in. We're going to wait for the little thing to come up here. Does it? It's flickering. There we go. We're going to see how that works for us, because I have questions for you. We're going to do some questions right now from the exam. Let's see how we do with this one. I just poked my LCD screen there. That did not make me happy, but here we are. And what I'm giving you, by the way, in this question is what we call a performance-based question. Some of you don't even realize the exam is a mixture of multiple choice questions and questions that aren't multiple choice questions. And this first question that we're getting is one that is not a multiple choice question. In fact, we're listing out different things. This one's a fill in the blank. You could get fill in the blank. You could drag and drop. They might put you with a command prompt and ask you to perform a function. You never know what you're going to get. So you want to be sure to go through these and figure out the details of all of these pieces. Here is our question. List the type of protocol, TCP or UDP, and the port number associated with these 5 functions. So I'm going to give you 5 things that you want to know: the protocol, which would be TCP or UDP, and you want to know the port number for all of these. The first one is, I want to gather statistics from a core switch. What protocol and port number would I use to gather statistics from a core switch? The second one is, I want to share a folder in Windows. Which one of those would it be? I hear a lot of Googling going on. No Googling, no cheating. You don't have Google when you're in the exam, so stop your Googling. Number 3, share a desktop from a remote location. Share a desktop from a remote location. What protocol, what port number? Number 4 is copy a file between macOS desktops. What protocol and what port number? And lastly, create a secure console connection to a database server. So we have gathering statistics from a core switch, sharing a folder in Windows, sharing a desktop from a remote location, copying a file between macOS desktops, and creating a secure console connection to a database server. Which ones would those be? So if you think you know, go to professormesser.com/QA. So you should absolutely be able to put those things in and figure out the details. So make sure you go through all of that. Figuring out. Some of you are saying, I don't know. I got no idea. Some of you are giving me the type of ones that you think it is. You're giving me an idea of what they could be. But no, you're not giving me the right thing for these. And for those of you that don't understand that I'm able to click things on my screen and hide them very easily, and you're not going to see these anyway because they're fill in the blank, we're going to go through all of these one by one on my screen, and you'll be able to see all of this as it's coming through. This is one also, by the way, as you're looking at this and trying to figure out what is this, what's happening here. A lot of you focus on with the 1001, same thing with the 901 exam, that there's a lot of what you call trivia, or what you perceive to be trivia. And a lot of you think port numbers are things you can do with a flashcard. But CompTIA is not really looking for you to decipher what port is associated with what protocol. They want you to know how these things are used. So make sure that you go through this list and figure out what we're really focusing on with these. We need to really understand how these technologies are used. So as you go through these, make sure you understand them as well. I think that helps too if you're ever trying to figure out what do they want from me. They don't want you to just answer port 80 is HTTP. They know you already have a familiarity with that. They want you to know, what's that mean? What does it allow? What does it give you? What service is it creating for you? What are people able to do because that protocol exists? And I think once you folks have gone through a lot of this, you would know. You're figuring out those details. So let's now, that a number of you have answered, we had a number of you go through this list and answer. Let's see how you did with this one. I think I've got some here you can go through. So the first one, I think we can go through these one by one. Let's step through each one of these. So the first one was gathering statistics from a core switch. Well, gathering stats from a core switch is probably going to be SNMP. I would imagine that's what I would use for this one. And indeed, in this case, that is SNMP. And the port number for SNMP is UDP 161. So you should already know off the top of your head that SNMP is a UDP protocol, and you should certainly know that it's 161. These are the things, by the way, that you often are asked when you're managing a firewall. Hey, could you allow SNMP for me? Oh, I need to know the port number. I need to know the protocol to be able to provide that. The second one was to share a folder in Windows. And if you want to share a folder in Windows, you're probably going to use Server Message Block, or SMB. And Server Message Block these days communicates directly over IP. That direct connection is using a TCP protocol over 445. That's a direct connection between Windows devices and being able to do that. So that should give you some idea with some of these. Let's also do a third one. The third one is share a desktop from a remote location. Share a desktop from a remote location. Sharing a desktop is going to be the remote desktop protocol. It's almost in the word itself. The RDP uses protocol TCP and port number 3389. Let's also look at the fourth one. Almost the same thing as number 2, where I was sharing a folder in Windows. Mac OS obviously doesn't use Server Message Block, or SMB. So the one that Mac OS uses when it copies files over is Apple File Protocol, AFP. I think it's Apple Filing Protocol, technically. But we just call it AFP. It is a TCP protocol using port 548. And the last one, here it is, create a secure console connection to a database server. That one should be a gimme. A lot of you folks who put information in, that's, if you knew nothing else, you knew this one. And that is SSH, Secure Shell. Whenever you see secure console connection, that's what we're talking about, a secure shell. TCP port 22 to be able to provide the secure shell. So those are the things you should be looking for there. Those are the options available to you. Those are the port numbers you should know. And this is just a few of them, by the way. There is Another larger list of port numbers and protocols you should know for this exam. Fortunately, they are all listed in the exam objectives. So you're not going to have any problem figuring out which ones of these you need to know. I've seen people show up on my website and say, well, I've got about this huge page. There are 100 protocols and port numbers I have to remember. But you don't. I don't know where they got this page from, but you should really always go back to the exam objectives. There's maybe 15. There aren't a lot. And a lot of these you probably already know. I tried to pick the ones maybe you didn't know. So if you didn't do well on this, you weren't too sure about these, don't worry. These are not protocols you generally run into every day, but you will run into them. They will be an absolute piece of importance for this. Some of you are asking about SNMP, the UDP 161, and saying, but why would that be TCP? Why is it UDP? Well, UDP is what we chose. But you're trying to, don't ever think that UDP and TCP are in some way better or worse than each other. The reality is both of these protocols work perfectly fine pretty much all the time. It's just that if you're querying a device and it doesn't query back, there needs to be some process in place to requery that if you don't get an answer. We don't rely on any more complex protocols to do that. Querying a device should be as low effort as possible. There shouldn't be a lot of overhead. And so I think that probably is one of the primary reasons TCP wasn't used. UDP is so simple. You send packet, you send it back, you're done, which makes a lot of sense. So to be able to do that. So there's your answers. Make sure that you make a copy of those, jot them down, be familiar with those. Those could absolutely come up on your exam. Make sure you're familiar with those. That'll be pretty important too. Let's go to another question. I've got some multiple choice questions for you. And again, these are focusing on questions from the 220-1001 exam. This one, I think, could also apply to the 900 series exam. It certainly could. And here's our question that asks, a network administrator is installing a POTS modem, P-O-T-S, a POTS modem for a console at a remote site. What type of cable interface would this modem require for connectivity to the POTS line? So if you think you know, go to professormesser.com/QA. But I have some options for you. You don't want to put any comments in the chat room or any hints in the chat room, because here's your possible answers. For the network administrator installing a POTS modem for a console or remote site, what type of cable interface would this modem require for connectivity to the POTS line? Would it be RJ45? Would it be BNC? Would it be RJ11? Would it be TRS? Or would it be USB? All of those, of course, are real and legitimate cable interfaces, but only one of them would be used in this particular scenario. If you think you know what the answer is, go to professormesser.com/QA. You can answer right now because I'm watching the answers come in live. Watching them live come in. So make sure that you're familiar with the possible answers that might be there. I noticed that our resetting of the HDMI to SDI converter seems to solve a number of issues. Who said that turning it off and back on again wouldn't be the right answer? I think with that one, we could have bet on that one. You may have been this network administrator who's installing a POTS modem. People think we don't install a lot of POTS modems these days, but in fact, we actually do for very interesting reasons. Talk more about those in a moment. Let's see how we did with this one. The network administrator doing this. Let's click and see how we did. Well, we have 62% of you, 63% that said RJ11. But we have a kind of a tie for second between RJ45 and BNC. Those combined are about 32%, 33%. And then TRS and USB are a tie for third at 2 and 3%. Both of those probably not in the running, I would imagine. So the real question is understanding a little bit of the technology. And POTS is the plain old telephone service or plain old telephone system. POTS, not something you commonly hear, the POTS system, whenever you're working through this. This POTS modem is one that is a standard regular modem that you would run into. We often refer to this as an analog telephone line. And an analog telephone line, which is also a digital telephone line if you're running DSL, uses an RJ11. The RJ stands for registered jack, and that's very often referring to a telephone connection. The most common version of this that you will find is this RJ11 that uses 6P2C. It stands for 6 position 2 conductor interface. In fact, you see the 2 conductors in this RJ11 jack that I have in an old laptop. And this is the RJ11 cable that will plug into it, and we can see the 2 wires that are used, because with analog phones, it's just 2 wires. That's it. We don't have multiple pairs, just 2 wires to be able to communicate over phone lines. Who knew? There are other RJ standards to work through the plain old telephone service or plain old telephone system. And you may see different wiring. You may see 4 wires inside of the 6-position conductor. You might see 6 wires inside of the 6-position conductor. Technically, those are different RJ standards. They're an RJ14. They're an RJ something else. There's others. There's quite a number of different RJ standards. The one that deals with RJ11 is very specifically talking to the 6-position 2-wire for this. You can see these 6 positions here. This happens to be one that's, I think, an RJ14, where it's got 4 of these, but we often never call it RJ14. If you just see this connector, we generically just say, oh, that's RJ11, even though technically it isn't, but it's the connector itself. We think that the connector itself is really the RJ11 connector. It really is the connector and the wiring inside of it. There are 2 other positions on the outside of this. You can kind of see them that have no copper on them. So those are your 6 positions. This happens to have 4 wires in the middle to be able to have those there. And that's why the correct answer on this one is indeed RJ11. 64% of you that said RJ11 got that one right. RJ45 commonly used for Ethernet connections. There are other RJ45s you might run into, but the most common that we're familiar with are the Ethernet connections. BNC, very common for DS3 type connections. They're also very common for types of connections inside of your computer configuration. Video very commonly uses BNC, but we don't see much BNC with video talked about on the A+ exam or the Network Plus. It's really about networking. So that would be for your DS3. TRS is tip ring sleeve. That's the analog audio jack we commonly think about when we're plugging in speakers. Might even be one that has 4 connectors on it, a tip ring sleeve. If you use headphones with a microphone for your mobile phone, that's a tip ring sleeve. You'll see there's 4 separate connections there on that one to include the microphone along with the left and right side and the ground. We also have USB. Nobody thought it was USB. You'd be right. We're not using USB to plug into the phone line. We're using RJ11. 65% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. I've got another multiple choice for you. Let's do another one. Here is one, since we were talking about all of these, having them. This one is talking about mobile phones and speakers. Weren't we just talking about mobile phones and speakers? We certainly were. The question more specifically asks, which of the following would be the best way to connect a mobile phone wirelessly to external speakers? Certainly mobile devices and connectivity is important on both the 901 and the 1001 exam. This question is asking, what's the best way to connect a mobile phone wirelessly to external speakers? And the options are TRS, Bluetooth, IR, USB-C, and NFC. There are your 5 options for connecting a mobile phone wirelessly to external speakers. I suspect some of you have connected these devices to external speakers before. You may have found that, being able to have those there. If you think you know the answer to this one, go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Please don't answer in the chat room. Please don't give any hints in the chat room. We're going to try to figure this out on our own, putting all these things together. So you absolutely want to figure out the best way to plug wirelessly into external speakers, and wireless connectivity for being able to connect and use devices wirelessly with our mobile devices is a big part of these exams. So you absolutely need to know the best way to do that. And in this case, there's at least 2 possible answers here, maybe 3 that you could consider being a wireless technology that you can use. So you may be able to break down all of the answers and go, that one's not wireless, this one's not wireless, these 3 are. Now I've narrowed the scope down, and maybe you can work through those, figure out the details. Let's see how we did with this one. Which of the following would be the best way to connect mobile phone wirelessly to external speakers? How did we do? I think a number of you have wireless external speakers, because 93% of you said, oh yes, Bluetooth. We do Bluetooth all the time. That's a good way to connect to external speakers wirelessly. Now, for bonus extra points, have a look at this list and in your mind, pick out the other two wireless technologies. So that's what I meant when I said two of these technologies are wired. Another three on this list are wireless. So if we go through this list, we can see, I just mentioned TRS, tip ring sleeve. We know that's a wired connection. We can throw that one out immediately. Looking also through this list, USB-C. So we know that USB and the USB-C connector is a wired connector. So your only possible wireless technologies here are Bluetooth, infrared, and near field communication. So you've got some options here to choose from. Now, USB or the infrared, we hardly use anymore. In fact, many of our mobile devices, such as the ones that are from Apple, don't even have infrared on them. So that's not a common option. Plus, infrared is sort of line of sight. Nobody wants to do infrared to be able to do anything these days. We don't really use it for much other than to maybe control other infrared devices with our mobile phone. And even that's not a very common use. Near field communication, you have to be very close. You have to put your mobile device right up to the other. Here, we'll put it right up to the microphone. Yeah, that would not be a fun way to have wireless speakers to be able to make that happen. The only possible answer available is indeed B, Bluetooth. 93% of you knew that was the case. So, and those in the chat room, NFC is not an option for your speaker. Definitely not. Bluetooth is definitely the option you would use. And we use Bluetooth if you're connecting these devices over this personal area network or a PAN. You'll sometimes hear it referred to that. These are all the devices that are somewhere within walking range of you. You can see it. It may be across the room. It's certainly not close to you all the time, although things like headsets certainly are. But it's one where you can put your phone down, walk around, or be far away from this device to be able to connect to it. So make sure you are familiar with Bluetooth and what it can do. And that's definitely on your exam. This is also on the 901 exam, but on the 1001 exam, more specifically, section 1.5 in my video for mobile device connections. Then we didn't really fool anybody with that one and being able to have that there. But there's plenty of options for Bluetooth out there, and it's a very convenient technology to use. Let's do another 220-1001 question for you. I've got one for you that's very specific. This is more of a visual daily double. So if you're listening on the podcast, this isn't going to help you very much. But we can absolutely talk to this as we go through it, because the question asks, what connection standard is being used by this hard drive? What connection standard is being used by this hard drive? And for those of you listening on the podcast, I'm showing a picture of a hard drive. That's it. So it's up to everybody else to figure out the details. Now, if you think you know the answer, do not put an answer in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We want to go directly to the possible answers, which are SATA, SCSI, PATA, eSATA, or SAS. All of these, by the way, connection standards for hard drives. Is it SATA, SCSI, PATA, eSATA, or SAS? We think you know the answer. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Let me give you a better picture. You're up close there. There it is. There's the connector. So if you're watching, you should be able to see that a little bit better on here. Those connection standards are pretty important, and you have to know. In fact, all of the connection standards I listed here are from the exam. So make sure you're familiar with these too when you go through them. Again, we want to be sure we're very familiar with what's on the exam. If you're not familiar at all with this, we'll talk about a little bit. The best place to go to know exactly what's going to be on the exam is this set of exam objectives. And we will look at these exam objectives in the second hour and go through them in a little bit more detail so you can understand what's really new and what's really different and how it works. This is one where whenever I start looking at all of these different things you need to know, it is almost overwhelming. But this list is great because you can check off what you need to know on the list and be able to work through those details. So hopefully that will help you. I know whenever I'm working through the details of all of these, it certainly helps me. So on the 220-1001, you do have to know this connection type. And how did we do? Well, we're sort of torn. We did not get a majority on this one. 48% of you say that it's PATA. 25% of you say it's SATA. 18% said SCSI. 6% said eSATA. And 3% said it's a serial attached SCSI. So we're a little torn, although if we go with the one that at least has the largest number, it would be 49, 48%. Half of us did say it was PATA. And in fact, it is PATA. So this is a PATA drive, a parallel ATA, which is a little different than the SATA drive, which is a serial ATA. This obviously is a very different connector than the serial ATA. The PATA drive has a completely different type of cabling, a different type of communication, a different type of everything. So make sure as you're going through the details of this that you are very familiar with this technology and how it works. And in my video 221001, section 3.1 PATA drive cables, I go through this connector type. I show you the cables. I help you understand why it's called PATA and the other names. There's many other names for this type of drive too that you might see associated with this. Why did they put PATA back on the exam? Because you'll notice PATA is not on the 900 series exam. This is not a 900 series question. This is a 1000 series question. And in the 900 series, they dropped it from the exam objectives. They added it back in the 1000 series objectives. So I don't know why. We never see this anymore. I do know why. I can tell you exactly why, because this is what I think. I think this is a pretty good guess, is that the United States federal government has a large emphasis in having people get certified. They really want people to be well certified. And the United States federal government has a lot of old computers. And I don't mean they have a few old computers sitting around. They have a lot of old computers that are in production. So make sure that if you need to know these interfaces, and quite honestly, you'll probably run into these anywhere you go. Every company has some old devices sitting around that they say that's doing that critical process. Don't touch it. There's one guy that knows how this works. If there's ever a problem, call that one person and they'll be able to fix it. And it's probably an old system. You can't upgrade it. You can't do anything to it. And it's got PATA drives in it. So that does come in handy to know what those differences are. For most of us that are not really doing this day to day, you're working with more modern equipment, you're probably not going to run into the PATA drive. So you'll run into almost any of these others. SCSI also back on the 1001 exam as well. So you've got PATA and SCSI that are now back again. PATA's back. Something. There's so much to know in these exams. So much detail. The PATA is just one of them. 50% of you did say PATA. We'll talk about SATA and SCSI and eSATA and serial attached SCSI in my videos. They're already, I don't know if they're already out there. What section is this? Let me back up one. That's 3.1. I don't know if those videos are posted yet. They might be or they might not be, for those of you familiar with all of those. This is one of the challenges, though, with this exam is it is broad. There's a lot of detail in this exam. And now, as it turns out, on the 1000 series, even more detail, because there just wasn't enough interfaces on the other one. We had to put more. We're dealing with hardware, networking, cloud-based technologies, security, troubleshooting, operating systems. You have to know some Linux. You have to know some Mac OS. You have to know some Windows 10. Tons and tons and tons of details. What I've done is go through every single one of my videos, and I've taken all of the information that's on every single slide, all of the graphics, all of the text, all of the charts that I make, everything that's there, I put into a single document. This is my course notes, and I have 221001 Core 1 course notes and 221002 course notes. These are course notes that are done. I haven't shot all the videos yet, but I've already created all the course. So the first thing I did was make these course notes available because there's so little material out there right now for the 1000 and 1000 series exams. There's almost nothing out there yet. It takes a couple of months to get things really going and get things published. So I wanted to get these out to you quick. These are full. These are complete. These are exactly following the exam objectives and available for you right now. You can purchase these and download them. They're $20 a piece. They have tons of info. Let me show you the Core 1. This is the PDF that you could download right now when you purchase these. And it goes by each one of these videos. So my first video was laptop hardware, details all the laptop hardware, but also shows you the laptop hardware, the interfaces. In fact, once you get into a lot of the other pieces of this, you'll start to recognize things from the video. They're all here in the course notes. You can purchase a digital version of those course notes and have them available to you immediately. I also have a physical version of the course notes. There's the Core 1 and the Core 2 course notes. So pick whichever one makes sense. We're talking about Core 1 today. This is exactly the same content. There's nothing different in this one than the PDF. This is just a physical version of the PDF that has been duplicated to dead trees. That's all this really is. But some people like to have a book version. Mrs. Professor Messer says you need a book version. This is the book version of that. If you purchase the book version, which costs a little bit more because it has to be printed and shipped to you, but if you purchase this, you can download the PDF for free. So there's a little bonus there for getting the physical version. That's a win-win, I think. You have to wait on the physical version, but at least you can get that there. This is a great way to support the site. I don't take donations. I don't have a Patreon. I don't want to do those types of things. I instead want you to have free access to videos as much as you want without me having to guilt you out of those things. The only time I can provide you with some type of quality content, I want you, if you're giving me money for something, you should get something in return. And so this is a way to do that. You want to know more about this, you can go to professormesser.com/link/1000notes, and it will take you right to the page. There's also links on the website to go to that. That's professormesser.link/1000notes, 1000 notes, and it will take you right to this. And you can figure out those details and all of the other things that you need to know from these exams. They're all there. It's a good thing to know. So hopefully this will help you as well. Thanks for your support with this. A lot of you already have these 1000 series notes. Thank you so much for jumping on board and grabbing those. Plenty of detail there. So thanks so much for all of that. Plenty to go through. Let's do another question though. Here's a question for you. This one comes from a set of emails and conversations that were in my online chat room, which is there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on my website at professormesser.com. It's at the bottom of every page. So you can, of course, have a look there. But we are having a conversation back and forth about this topic. The question is, an organization is building a custom inventory management system, but would like to use pre-built modules as the foundation of the application. Which of these cloud technologies would be the best fit? So I have a number of options for you. I have PAAS, I have IAAS, there's hybrid, there's rapid elasticity, and there's SAAS. I know I'm pronouncing them a little bit differently than you commonly hear. That's on purpose. So let's look at this question again. It asks, an organization is building a custom inventory management system, but would like to use pre-built modules as the foundation of the application. Which of these cloud technologies would be the best fit? Is it PAS? Is it IaaS? Is it hybrid? Is it rapid elasticity? Or is it SaaS? So those are your options available. Maybe you're familiar with what people are trying to do with these cloud technologies. And if you do know what they're trying to do, you'd be able to answer this question. Some of you have been nice enough to send me notes and say, I don't know what you're talking about. In the chat room, you're even saying, I have no clue with this. Take a stab. That's an important consideration, by the way. If you do get a question like this on your exam and you're looking at it and you think, I don't know, I have no idea. I don't know the question. I don't understand the question. I don't know the answers. At least answer the question. Make sure you take a guess. So on the exam, what we have found, what we believe, although CompTIA doesn't share their grading methodology, what we believe is that if you guess and you're wrong, it doesn't count against you. They don't take points away if you guessed wrong. What we think happens is if you guess right, you get points, which means there's no penalty for taking a guess at this. So if you do have a question on the exam that you don't know, answer A. I don't know. Answer C. Answer D. Answer anything. Answer what you would hope it would be and put that in there. That's what you should do. Never submit your exam with questions that have been left blank. Never, 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 never do that. Pretty important as you go through this list. Yeah, maybe it's eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Maybe that's what you do. So that's what you want to do is focus on this. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Please no comments in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Don't tell me what you think it is. We're going to pretend that we're actually on this and thinking about the exam and being right there. So performance-based questions we think are the same. That you take a stab at some of these and it helps. We don't know for sure. Performance-based questions are an animal all about themselves. Let's see how you did with this one. I have not even looked yet. We're going to click on this and see, and we're not sure. None of us are quite sure. 35% said SaaS. 30% said pass. It's almost a tie. We've got 19% that said hybrid, 14% that said IaaS, and then 3%, why can't I say 3 today? Less than 4, more than 2, said rapid elasticity. I should have just waited for the number to cycle. Then I wouldn't have had that problem. So what is the right answer with this one? This whole pre-built module software development crazy? Well, the one we were looking for is platform as a service, or PaaS. This is one of the real benefits of platform as a service. You can think of platform as a service as a bunch of building blocks. This is exactly what you want if you're trying to develop an application. Instead of starting from the beginning and putting your entire application from the ground up and writing every single bit of code yourself, don't you think if there was a set of building blocks where there's a login page, put that building block in. Then it creates a list of items from a database. We'll put that building block in. And then we need to have a building block that allows us to add things to the database. Put that building block in. There are actual systems on the internet designed with this in mind that have the blocks already there. They have, in fact, many of these are much bigger blocks. They say, here's an inventory management system, but you can move things around the screen. You can add things to the inventory management system. You can take things out, but the basic function of an inventory management system is there. Maybe you want to integrate that inventory management system with a purchasing system, so when you buy things, they automatically go into inventory. We'll put that building block right on. You don't have to write any code. There's no Java. There's no C++. There's nothing you have to do to make that happen. Sometimes there's some very minor development work to add the links between all of these, but you're not writing this from the ground up. The building block was already created there for you. And that's the benefit of platform as a service. So you can spend your time really designing what you want the application to do rather than writing it from the ground up. Really important to have that there. This is a very useful tool to have. The benefit really is it's also in the cloud. So now you can access this and have the ability to use this inventory management software or whatever you're building from anywhere you would like. So very useful to have that there. So a good example of platform as a service are some of the offerings available from Salesforce.com. A lot of people consider Salesforce.com to be software as a service, and indeed, Salesforce.com does have a series of products they offer that are standalone software as a service products that there's no customization. Here's what it does, go. But that's a pretty unusual use of Salesforce.com these days, quite honestly. Most people are taking advantage of this platform as a service functionality with Salesforce.com and building out the things they want because everybody wants something a little bit different. And so they designed this to be, think of it as software as a service that you can customize. That Salesforce.com, they don't care what you do, build it however you'd like. We'll give you all the building blocks you need to make that available and have that there. So that's the real secret of platform as a service and one of the advantages to platform as a service and one of the reasons Salesforce.com has been so successful of these, being able to really do something with that. And that's why 31% of you that answered A, platform as a service, got that one absolutely right. Well done. It would not be infrastructure as a service. With infrastructure as a service, you're basically given hardware. Here's your hardware. Go do something with that. Well, that's the case, I have to start from the beginning. I have to load my own operating system. I have to install the application that I'm going to run. I have to write the application from the ground up. You're not even giving me building blocks. You just give me hardware. Software as a service has no customization at all. That's one where it's Google Mail. It's Yahoo Mail. You're logging into your mail. Here's what you get. Oh, I really wish the mail had the ability for me to sign things with PGP. Let me add the PGP module. Sorry, can't do that. That's platform as a service. You have software as a service. You get exactly what we're giving you, and that's the way it works. Hybrid and rapid elasticity. Rapid elasticity allows an organization to quickly scale up and scale down depending on the need. And hybrid is a combination of how the technology is used, whether it's a private cloud, a public cloud, a community cloud. There's different types of combinations of those. Those would be a hybrid combination. The only possible answer here would be A, platform as a service. So well done with that. If you are somebody who is watching this video for continuing education credit, you would like me to send you an email that has been digitally signed that says you must have watched this live study group for the 220-1001 exam. I will get it right on the email. You can follow these instructions. You must follow these instructions to be able to earn the email. You go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link. In that Contact Us link, it will ask you for your name, your email address. Make sure those are right because I'm giving you this digitally signed email that has to get back to you somehow. And if you give me the wrong email, it won't get back to you. You're wondering, where's the email? I put in that bogus email whenever I sent this in. Well, I sent it back to the bogus email. You can get it there. Somewhere in there is also a text box. Now, I'm the one reading these. You can put a message in there. You can put anything you'd like. But somewhere in there, put the words or the abbreviation PAAS, Platform as a Service. Either one of those works for me. You don't have to spell it out if you don't want to. You can if you'd like, and put whatever you'd like to in there as well. So plenty to do with this whenever you're working through and trying to figure out how do I get more CEUs, assuming that's what you want to do. Not everybody does that these days. That's a good option for you, and hopefully that's something you can use to help you get through these. We got time for more questions, though. Let's get another one in. I have a question here that asks, whoa, this thing, what in the world are we looking at there? This is the output from a printer in the accounting department. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for what most assuredly is an issue? So hopefully that's one that is a bit of a challenge. Wow. This is something. See, some of you in the chat room are like, I've heard of that. I know what that is. I'm familiar with that. That's something I might have run into. Hopefully you have, but I've given you some options. Do you think it is a bad network connection? Is it a spooler crash? Is it a scratched photosensitive drum? Is it a drum not cleaned properly? Or is it an incorrect driver? This is another one of these visual ones that those of you listening on the podcast won't be able to really get very well. But I'll explain to you what we have in front of us is a printed page with what looks like a bunch of crazy blocks and weird characters. I do see a couple that are normal characters in here. A lot of it is accents and weird the Y's with an accent in front of it. And there's a lot of umlauts. There's a lot of graphical blocks on the screen. There's @ signs, there's zeros. There's so much there to have that there. So hopefully this is what you've run into. This is the output from a printer in the accounting department, which the following would be the most likely reason for this issue. Yeah, the page is not in Socrative. You can look at the page here for this and know what it is. I didn't think it was necessary. We can pretty much see that's a page with a bunch of garbage on it. So the garbage page is there. So hopefully that's one where you've seen this. Some of you are like, oh yeah, the accounting department again. I've seen what they've been printing. That happens all the time. I have to go fix this now. And the options I didn't have here, turn it off and turn it back on again. That was not one of the options. Would that have worked? I don't think that it would. There's only one of those that would be the most likely reason for this issue. Do we really know what it was? Let's find out if we do. Let's flip over to this and see how you answered this particular question. 77% of you say it's an incorrect driver. 12% of you said the spooler has crashed. And then single digits for a scratched photosensitive drum, a bad network connection, or the drum not cleaned properly. Now, if we go with what I probably would be the vast majority, 76% is a pretty good majority of incorrect driver. Is that really what the option would be? Well, this is clearly a bad output. It's clearly garbage. It's clearly a garbled bunch of something there for that. This is really a mess to have there. It could be a bad printer driver. You could be printing to one model of printer. It's really a different model of printer. That does sometimes happen over the network. And this could also be a case where the printer has a particular language that it understands. It might be a PCL language printer, and you might be sending it PostScript or vice versa. Normally PostScript I can read, but it might be a PostScript printer and you're sending it PCL. that would probably be more along the lines of the type of thing that you would see. Could be the application's just bad. That's certainly possible. The application was never designed to print things, and then you tell it to print it, and it doesn't know what to do, and it sends the printer a bunch of nonsense. That's certainly possible. That's a little bit more rare to see. The real question is this happening because of what I'm printing, or is it happening because there's a problem with the printer? Those are two different things. What if we were able to take the accounting user out of the equation and just look at the printer? Most printers have a test page on them. So you can go through the menus and say, please print a test page, they're not pulling information from the network connection. They're not pulling information from a serial or parallel port or USB port. They're instead printing from something internal within the printer. So we have a known good source of content. And if we did that and we still got this page, then something has gone awry with the hardware inside of our printer. But in the options I gave you, none of those were available except for one, and the only one I gave you that could be the most likely reason for this issue is indeed option E, the incorrect driver. So that is one 77% of you chose, and 77% of you would indeed be right. Now let's go through this list though. Why is it not any of these others? Printing is a big thing on the A+ exam, so I think we should go through these. The second most popular option with 12% was a spooler crash. A spooler crash. The spooler crash would cause things not to print. The spooler is this storage area that is the intermediary between you and the printer. Before there were spoolers, you would tell your system to print, and you were directly connected to the printer, and you had to wait for your entire document to print, which on these older printers was kind of slow. And it would take sometimes minutes or even hours, depending on how big the document was. And only after it was finished printing did your computer return control to you and you could continue with your application. Thankfully, those days are gone, because now what your computer does is print to a spooler. Usually that's a piece of software that's running inside your operating system. The spooler then collects all of the data, which means you now have the ability to do anything else in your computer you would like now. And while you're doing other things, the spooler is slowly feeding the content off to the printer so that things are able to print. If the spooler fails, then nothing ever gets to the printer. You effectively create these queues. You keep piling up all your print jobs, nothing's printing out. And finally, when you reset or restart the spooler, you get 10 copies of the thing that you were trying to print. So in this case, we got something, this horrible page. That is a thing, but if the spooler crashed, we'd have gotten nothing. The printer would not have moved at all. 6% of you said a scratched photosensitive drum. If it was, we would at least get something we recognized. What we would have ended up with is a big line down the page. But in this case, it was garbage. I want to think the people in accounting were not trying to output this page. This was not their desired output for this. It was a spreadsheet. You know it was a spreadsheet, and there would just be a line down the page if it was a scratched photosensitive drum as that scratch went around and around as the page went through. The bad network connection. Bad network connections are bad, but it would cause the device not to be able to print. You would not see garbage come out. There are mechanisms within the networking components, within the protocols themselves, to make sure that traffic is able to get from one side of the network to the other without something being corrupted. And if it is corrupted, those packets are dropped on the network. We never get them or send that data back up to the application because it never got through the network properly. If it really was a bad network connection, it just would not print. And then you've got 2% of you that said the drum was not cleaned properly. If that was the case, we'd probably see a ghost image of what we printed on the previous page. In this case, there's no ghost image there. It's just a bunch of garbage. It's just a bunch of nonsense. So that didn't make sense either. That would not be the reason for this issue. That's not where we were going with this. In fact, it was a bad driver. We were printing to, click this, we're printing to a printer with the wrong configuration. We were telling it that was one type of printer. In reality, it was a different kind of printer, which does happen all the time. Some people say it could be a corrupted installation of the correct driver. Well, yes, but that was not one of your options. So that's how that works too with these. All of this information this is, by the way, back to that point, because this is a good point, is that I gave you probably what is the most obvious answer with this. Sometimes with these questions, you will have one, two, or sometimes more answers that could be the right answer. But you have to look very closely at the question, especially when they say the most likely cause of this issue, the most likely reason for this issue. So make sure that if you're choosing from multiple opportunities, multiple choices that could be right, make sure you check the one that best fits the scenario that they're giving you. And that will be very obvious on the exam. It won't be quite as vague as you think it sounds. It will be very obvious. All this information comes directly from the exam objectives. The CompTIA exam objectives will tell you everything you need to know. So earlier in the chat, somebody was saying that there wasn't a lot of 221,001 or 221,002 content on the CompTIA website, which I don't know where you got that from. It was clearly listed there for that the A+ exam objectives. They're all there. You can download the objectives there. The detail of exactly what's on the exams is on the CompTIA website. This was released less than a month ago, but they put everything out there. So there's just as much 1,000 version content as there is 900 at this point. I often say this, is that you need a copy of these objectives. I'm being pretty serious here. This tells you everything you need to know for the exam. So people say, how do I know what I should study for? Well, this is it. It's the objectives. I'm showing the 901 page here, but it applies the same to any of the CompTIA exams. A+, Network+, Security+, it doesn't matter. They make a great checklist too. I've seen on Reddit this week people say, I've got a week before my exam. I'm having my exam this weekend. What should I study? You should go to this exam objectives, and that's your checklist. Go through this list. It will tell you where you're weak. It will tell you where you need to study a little more. It will be very obvious. You can circle those things, make a point of those, and go to them. That is my little tip for you. I tell you every month that you should get the objectives. That's how important it is. I do one of these study groups every month. Now I do, for the A+, 2 of them every month. If you like the 1,000 or the 221,001 version of this study group, you'll want to come back on Thursday for the 221,002 version. That's on February the 7th. I also have some already set up for next month. So come back on March the 5th and March the 7th, and we'll do this again. I've got more. 1001 questions and 1002 questions. Core 1 and Core 2. Can't keep track of which one's which. It's one or the other. But it's now the 1,000 series. So all of these will be for 1,000 series. If you're somebody who's studying for the 1,000 series exam, you're thinking there's not enough stuff out there yet. I'm trying to right now choose questions that are very specific to the 1,000 series exam so that we can really focus on those. You can go back if you're studying for the 900 series. There's plenty of content there for you. Stick around for the next hour. I'll be answering some of these questions about what's new and different in the 1,000 series exam. Maybe we'll just do a Q&A where we'll go through some of those. But of course, you can get my A+ question every day on Twitter. Of course, all of my newer videos are out on YouTube. Make sure you go out to professormesser.com/YouTube. You can, of course, subscribe, click the bell, all those good things. Thank you for your ongoing support with my course notes. All my complete and full and ready-to-go versions of my 221,001 and 221,002 course notes are available at professormesser.com/1000 notes. Actually, it's .com or .link. Have I already messed up my links? I have. It's not .com, it's .link. And of course, we do these live events all the time. If you're watching this on a replay and you're wondering when is another one of these live events, you can always go to professormesser.com/calendar or click the calendar link at the top of the page and find that. Stick around for the next hour. I'm going to open up the phone lines. We'll take questions from the chat room. I'll tell you everything I know about the differences between the 900 series and the 1,000 series. It's coming up next. Thanks for being here, though. We'll see you next time on the A+ Study Group. Got something here somewhere we can look at. Let's see. Now we're at the after show. Welcome to the after show, everybody. I'm going to quickly get things together on my side so that we can take phone lines. We can do other things. We can get the details there. Let me get that set up. I've got things to see. Let's host a show. Let's call into the show, and then I'm going to talk to you about some other things that I have. But you're going to have to bear with me just one moment while I bring up my Skype, while I dial into my own show. That's how it's done. It's modern technology to have all these things here. So let's doom. And we're going to type in some numbers here and hit the pound sign.
enter your 6-digit PIN number.
Well, that's redundant, but we're doing it anyway. And it tells me,
Welcome.
okay, so that means that I at least can answer phone calls if you were to call in. And for those of you that do want to call in the continental U.S., it is a toll-free number. It doesn't cost you a thing at 855-785-7545. You can also call in for free anywhere in the world by putting a +1 in Skype. Just because Skype's free if you call a toll-free number in the U.S. There's no Skype minutes required. Put a +1 because I'm here in the U.S. That's the U.S. number. +1 855-785-RJ45. That's +1 855-785-7545. I'll get to those phone calls in just a moment, but first I want to talk to people about what's new in this exam. So I thought what would be good is I go to the 1001 course notes and I look at what has changed in my version of the course notes. And I think we'll just go through this very quickly because a lot of you were asking about this earlier. I'm going to do this as a single page. I think this will work. So whenever I start with going through the exam, one of the first things I do is I grab the exam objectives. It's very important to be able to see this and have all of the details of this available. The important part of having this is that I can go back to all of the previous exam and the current exam and really see what's going on. So let's have a look at the exam objectives. These are the 220-1001 exam objectives. And one of the first things I do, and some of this is completely spot on, some of these may be a little bit wrong as you're looking at them, but that's because in my mind, I'm actually looking at as making some changes. So some of the things you see here that show as being changed, you may say, no, that topic was on the 900 series, but I'm marking it for me to be able to produce videos from. So these are the exact exam objectives I go through. Everything marked in green is exactly the same as the 900 series exam. For example, a keyboard, a hard drive, memory, optical drives have not changed at all in 3 years. They're all pretty much the same thing. So on a mobile device, on a laptop, they're all the same. Nothing has changed, so they're green. So I know the content will be very similar. I go through all the content, I tweak some things, I change some words, I update some graphics, I update some photos, I change the presentations themselves have all been updated. There are no presentations that are exactly the same. I re-record every single one of them with all of the changes that I make. So nothing is duplicated, but much of the content is very similar to the other. But where things have changed are yellow. So cellular card and video card are a little different than what we had on the old version. So I mark those, and those have been added to the video. But you'll notice there's a lot of green. Notice this mobile device section, for example, there's a lot of green. Let me go back up to this. This is now going faster than I wanted on my screen. Let me try to scroll down a little bit so we can go a little bit slower with this. So on this, maybe I'm not going to be able to. Maybe that's just how this is going to go for me. Let's view it maybe 2 pages. That'll go a little bit better. So as we look at the first page, first 2 pages, you can see there's a lot of green here. So all the way up to section 1.7, there may be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 topics on the first 2 pages that are new to the 1001. Now, this is not typical, by the way. As we go to the second page, you can see things change a bit, or the second pair of pages. Port numbers are pretty much the same, although some port numbers are new or have changed a bit. Anything that's purple are things that have changed a bit. We have a big difference. Section 2.2 and section 2.3 is almost all new. So don't get into the idea that I can just study from the 900 series. This is very, very different in certain areas. Section 2.3, for example, almost all new content for the A+ exam. This looks very similar to the content from the Network Plus exam, for those of you familiar with it. But they've pulled it into A+ because this type of content has become more important. So it makes sense that they would pull that in there. When we go to section 3, similar scenario. About 20% of the exam is different. So that's where people are asking, where can I see this? How does it work? What are we doing with this? About 20% is new. And you start to see things that are new. USB-C, of course, is new in the last 3 years. But then they added other things like SCSI cables, like adding other DDR4, of course, is new. M.2 drives are new, even though they put M2 on the exam objectives. You should know that it's really M.2. And other types of input and output peripherals. So very important to have those there. If we keep going in Section 3, Section 3 is a big one because it deals with hardware and printers. Notice things like Section 3.9 are all brand new. All new content. So don't be fooled by all the green. It's the yellow that's going to get you on the exam. It's the yellow that will trip you up. So don't worry too much about those as we go through them. And then you can see a good example of Section 4. Section 5, I don't think I have the details on that this page, but on Section 5, you can see most of this is green as well. So for those of you that are wondering what is the difference in these two versions of the exam, the answer is not a lot. There's not a lot of difference between these two exams. So make sure that you're pretty familiar with what options you have available, what you should be studying from. That's why I say don't study from 900 series content and go take the 1000 series exam. There's a lot of similarities, but there's just enough difference that it's going to cause you a problem later. And you want to walk into the exam with the best possible chance for passing. You do not want to walk into the exam having studied something else. That is not your best possible chance for passing. So make sure that you really, really know what all of these are really expecting you to know when you walk in the door. Because you'll suddenly see USB-C will pop up, you'll see SCSI, you'll see PATA, and you're wondering, what is that? I'm not familiar with that. What in the world's going on? That's what's going on, is you studied from the wrong content. What a lot of people are doing, though, is now that we know what's different, make sure that you go through this list and really understand what's new. You could take the 900 series content and then just study the differences. That's viable. There's certainly something you can do there because you need to know these things. You have to be able to be familiar with them and have all those things there. And indeed, some of these headers are a little bit different. Some of these things are a little bit different in the explanations. But not much is different. And you gave a really good example, Jacqueline, in the chat, where you say in Section 3.2 on the 901, it says, explain the function of components within the display of a laptop. But in the 1001 exam, it says, given a scenario, install components within the display of the laptop. Well, that's basically the same thing. That's effectively the same thing. There's a little bit more to it when you talk about installing components. But if you go back and look at everything that I ever saw written for the 900 series exam was already explaining to you how to install those components anyway, because that's why you would know what they are to begin with in the display of the laptop. So that's the real details. Yes, a lot of things were added. So in the chat room, people are saying, wait, SCSI? That's not in the 900 series. PATA? That's not in the 900 SCSIs. It's in the 900 series. Did they re-add that? Yes, they did. Yes, it's in there. They re-added PATA, they re-added SCSI, they added a lot of older things to this. And as I mentioned earlier, that's probably because of things that were that we see in other larger environments where they are still using PATA, where they are still using SCSI. It's not normal to have that there, to have those pieces there. Some folks in the chat room asking about wireless standards. Does it have this wireless standard? Does it have that wireless standards? Is this new in there? Everything is in the exam objectives. Go to the exam objectives. You'll be able to see everything listed in there. This is one where whenever you start looking at the objectives, they can be a little bit crazy and having all those pieces there. I think whenever I start looking at where do I start, where do I stop with these things, that's where I always go back to the objectives. So if you're trying to figure out, should I really be studying that? Should I not be studying that? Go to the exam objectives. They tell you everything. As you just saw, they list out everything for you. No other certification I've ever seen does this. CompTIA is really giving you a heads up They're letting you know that there are some significant advantages to being able to read through all of this. Cisco doesn't do this for you. Microsoft doesn't do this for you. VMware doesn't do this for you. Red Hat doesn't do this for you. There's way too much detail there. It's almost like having a secret weapon. If you have the exam objectives, you've got a secret weapon. There have been people that have come to my site and that have said, I took the exam, I did so badly on it. They asked me things I was not expecting. And so, of course, I always ask, well, if you're not expecting it, what did you find on there? What do you think it was? What topics did you run into? And they listed out the topics they ran into. And I said, well, it's in the exam objectives. And they said, what's the exam objectives? Oh, you walked into the exam without the exam objectives. Don't do that. Don't fall into that trap. That would be a bad idea. So the question now moves to, where am I going to be able to get content for the 221,001 and the 221,002 exams? Unfortunately, in our industry, there's this problem with physics. It takes time to create a quality training course. It takes even longer to write a book. It is an excruciatingly slow process to be able to create this type of content, regardless of whether it's video or book. It doesn't matter. It takes a long time to do these things. And so a lot of you that haven't been here when CompTIA has introduced new exam versions is that they introduced this exam on January 15th, and there was no books available on January 15th to learn anything about this exam. I think except for the ones from CompTIA. I think they were the only people that had books for all of them. I had already introduced and had released my course notes. So at least my course notes are available, but that's not a courseware book. Those are notes from my course. Those are a little bit different. And of course, some of my videos were already being produced at that time. So by the time this was released, this new version, there was some content out there. But a lot of you are asking, wait, some of this stuff's not going to be available until April or May for these things. And you can find them on Amazon. They're listing out what the release dates for these are going to be. That's how long it takes to publish a book through a traditional publisher. So I can't, some people are asking, so when can we expect these books? I have no idea. I'm not writing a book. I hate writing books. I've already done that before. Not what I like to do. I like making videos. So I'm going to make videos for you. I'm not going to write a book. There are plenty of people that are writing books. That's not a problem. You'll have plenty of options available to you, but it takes time. And that's the challenge you have as somebody who's trying to take these certifications. And I recognize this is a challenge for you. So this is a little bit of a problem, is you have to be able to decide, do I go 900 series or do I go 1000 series? Plenty of 900 series content, almost nothing, relatively speaking, on the 1000 series side. Which one do I do, considering that the 900 series disappears forever on July 31st? And I get it. That is a completely valid and challenging issue to have to deal with when you're trying to go into the unknown of how long is this going to take? Because that's the next question people ask, is how long does it take to study for these exams? It's different for everybody. So those are a real challenge. This is the issue. And that's why I mention there's a little bit of difference between the two, but not that much, relatively speaking. For instance, the Security Plus exam that was updated just over a year ago, it was updated and almost 70% of its content was new. This is not the issue you have. You only have 20% of the content that is new. So that's the real issue. Whenever you want to see anything, that's where you're going to have to go to see what people are finally publishing. So keep watching Amazon to find those books you're looking for. Specific to my videos, for those of you that are aware, I've already been publishing 1001 videos. The next step will be to do the 1002 videos. I just do them in order. The 1001 videos, I've already got 35 or 40 videos that are out there. There's some that I even edited today that have not been posted yet. So there's an active process going on to create these videos, to edit, to package, and publish them on YouTube. So if you're subscribed to my YouTube page, you've clicked the bell, you'll be notified when they're uploaded. So hopefully they'll be uploaded today, tomorrow. I'll have a chunk of them that I can put out there so that you can see them and have them available. So that's what I recommend that you also do, that you have available with those things as well. Go see those videos. So for those of you wondering, when will that be done? When will those be finished? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I don't have a formal production schedule. My production schedule is I want to get them done as fast as possible. And as soon as I finish a chunk of videos, I publish them and put them on YouTube. So the second they are something that you can watch, that I like, that are good, that they're finished, I put them out there. So I'm always adding new ones to the list. But there's nobody behind me saying, you have to get it done by X date. I prefer creating the content that's good, and I'm going to have it take however long it takes to have that content really good. I'm not going to push myself to be finished by an arbitrary date, which will either force me to have less quality content or it will cause me to miss the date and you'll be angry with me. So instead, I'm not doing either of those things. I'm just building them. I'm building them to how I like them. I want them to be the highest quality they can be, and then I put them on the internet. Is that fast enough? No. There's not fast enough. There's never fast enough. That's the real challenge, of course, when these are updated, is there's not enough time in the day to get as much of these done as I would like. I finished the day yesterday. I was angry with myself because I wasn't able to get through as much as I wanted yesterday. There were other things going on in my world yesterday. There were things you have to do, just the normal things you do in life. I have to go run an errand. I have to get my teeth cleaned. I have to take someone to the doctor. I have to go see. There's always things. This is a norm. Everybody has that. So I want to be able to work these videos and the content around those things as well, but I don't want to push myself. So for those of you that are saying, we need it done quickly, I agree, and I'm with you. I want it done as quickly as possible too, but I'm not going to sacrifice quality to get something out faster. I just don't think anybody wants that either. And my course notes are available already. What a lot of people don't realize is I already wrote the course. It's already done. I spent months creating the course. It's finished. I've got it on this computer that's in front of me. I just haven't shot the video yet, which is really time consuming. So make sure that you go through all of those and figure out those details and know what your strategy is going to be. I realize right now in this transition period, it's a little difficult to figure out, but maybe go through the exam objectives, get a familiarity with the content, get more comfortable with it, and make an educated decision on what direction you should be going. This will obviously be much easier by April or May. There will be many other books out. There will be more content available. There will be many more people that have created things, and it will be a little bit easier. But right now, it's a little bit hard, and I understand it is, and I share your frustration. I wish I could get them done faster as well, but that's physics. There's nothing more we can do along those lines. So hopefully that's giving you some perspective on the differences between 1001 and the 901 so that you can make an educated decision about that and figuring out those details. Let's shift gears a bit. There's a question in the chat room regarding renewal of certification. So regarding the renewal, somebody is planning to renew with the CertMaster CE. For those of you that haven't been tracking my website, I produced a video this last week that talked about renewing your A+ Network Plus or Security Plus by using CertMaster CE, where you effectively can renew in just a few hours. So that is one where whenever you work through this, trying to figure out the details, renewing in just a few hours can be pretty useful. If you've ever had to collect CEUs and it's taking you months, and then I show up and go, well, you can do it in a couple hours. Some people I know have done it in a couple of hours. CompTIA says 3 to 6. You can do it in 3 to 6 hours and you're done for 3 years. And so I did a video on what that's detailed, but it requires that the version of exam that you took to earn your certification is at a minimum a certain version or earlier. So for example, if you want to take the CertMaster CE right now, you would have had to pass the N10006 or earlier than that. But I would argue if you're somebody who has taken the N10007, how old is your certification? Like a year? You're not even close to renewal for that yet. You're not even in the ballpark for renewal for that yet. So you still have 2 years or so before your certification is even close to being expired. I guess the question would be, is CompTIA planning to update the CertMaster CE so that someone who took the N10007 would be able to renew that way? And I don't know. I have no formal affiliation with CompTIA at all, intentionally. I want to be independent from what CompTIA is doing. I'm not a CompTIA partner. I don't plan to be a CompTIA partner. I prefer being able to say whatever I would like to say about CompTIA, either good or bad. And one of the challenges, if I could say a bad thing about CompTIA, is they really haven't described how they're planning to provide upgrades for the people where the CertMaster CE doesn't yet apply. Are they planning to create a new version of CertMaster CE that would include people who took the N10007? And if so, what date would that be available? They haven't said. And I really think they should say. They should say that for people that have taken the 900 Series A+. They should say that for people who've taken the SY0501 Security Plus. Or have they decided that when those exams are expired after 3 years, they're just not going to do CertMaster CE anymore? We don't know, which leaves you in this weird middle area of not knowing what to do yet. Should you be collecting CEUs? Should you be waiting to see if they update the CertMaster CE? My recommendation would be to contact CompTIA directly and get an answer. I think we deserve an answer for that. There needs to be a long-term plan for people that already have those certs so they can decide what path they want to follow for certifications. That's something we just don't know yet. Right now, you can't use CertMaster CE, and that's all we know. Will they provide a path later on? Who knows? We don't know. And that's the real challenge. I think they should commit. I think they should make it available, and I think it should be there. But the reality is you have a couple of years. So maybe when we start getting close, maybe you put some CEUs in your pocket. Maybe you have all the documentation available, and then finally you can decide near the end, do you want to submit CEUs and pay the money, or do you want to take CertMaster CE, which doesn't require the annual CEU maintenance? And depending on what you use to upgrade, you may or may not be paying annual CEU maintenance fees. It's not very straightforward, is it? In the video I created about CertMaster CE, I go through the 4 most popular ways to renew your certification, and I describe how much time they take and how much they cost. So if you're somebody who's trying to figure out which path is going to be right for me, you might want to look at that video. I posted it last week. It's on how to renew your A+ Network Plus or Security Plus in just a few hours. That's the name of the title. It's a mouthful, but that may help you as well. The question also in the chat room, how easy is it to get CEUs? You can get them by attending this, but there's so many different things that you can do to earn a CEU. You can attend a trade show. You can attend a college course. You can go to a training class, a third-party training class. You can take a CompTIA exam and earn a CompTIA certification. You can take a third-party and pass a third-party exam for a third-party certification. And there's a big list of things. You could write a book and you earn CEUs. Wow. You got to really want those CEUs. You write a book, you could write a paper, you could write a blog post, and each one of those things is a different category of CEU and is worth a different number of hours. So there's a big list on the CompTIA website. It's almost one of those where it's like the meme where the guy's standing in front of the board and there's all the pictures and the lines between all the pictures, and they have this great conspiracy theory about how this thing works. It's a little difficult to follow. Sometimes the CompTIA stuff can be a little difficult to follow unless you spend time to really understand the CEU process, and unfortunately I have. So I can answer it for you. That's maybe the best way to do it. Just ask me and I'll tell you. Which is the best way to do it? I don't know. To have all of those available. We do have phone lines open. If someone would like to call in, certainly can. I've got all of these things available and sitting here. And of course, taking questions from the chat room as well. If you're in the live event chat, if you're looking at this on the YouTube, there is no chat. You're wondering, where's the YouTube chat? It's over at professormesser.com/live. There is no YouTube chat. It's the chat on my website. It's called the live event chat. And that's where we're getting these from and being able to have those there. This is a real important aspect of this. One important thing I did notice, by the way, over the last week, this is something worth mentioning. I'm going to bring up the CompTIA Academic Marketplace. The CompTIA Academic Marketplace is a little different than where you would normally purchase a voucher if you were not a student. Academic Marketplace, I think, implies that you are a student somewhere. The importance of the Academic Marketplace is that they have vouchers that are heavily discounted if you're a student. So for instance, if I browse through the certification vouchers for A+, a single A+ voucher, which is how much? $185, $200 over in the normal marketplace. For the student academic voucher, $100. I mean, that's a significant discount over the normal price. The real hitch with this is that you have to have an EDU email address. Now, in the past, CompTIA has said that's your requirement. They haven't actually said ever that I've been able to see, you have to be a student with an EDU email address. I think in the past, they've only said you need an EDU email address. I think it was implied that you're on the academic store, that you're getting an academic exam voucher, that you're an academic. I think that's fair. Now, also to be fair, other people who are not currently in school, because many colleges allow you to keep your EDU email address after you graduate. And because of that, a lot of people were getting these academic exam vouchers, but perhaps were not following probably not really the rules, because there was no rule, but probably the type of objective that CompTIA was trying to set with these. Probably not exactly the word of law, but that was the idea of law they were trying to put down. Well, what CompTIA has done now is requiring, if you let's buy this. I think I put something in my cart the other day. It's not there anymore, but let's buy this academic voucher, because I'm clearly not an academic, but we're going to put it in here. And one of the things they say now is at checkout, you will be asked to provide eligibility information that will be validated regarding yourself and the school that you attend. So they have a list of things that you have to upload to them. Picture of your class schedule. I don't know what it is. Your bank account showing the debt of your student loan. I don't know what they're asking, but they're now asking for something that they no longer just accept an EDU. You have to submit your proof that you are a student, and then they will sell you the voucher. So I don't want to say that maybe some people ruined it for everybody, but some people ruined this for everybody. So, and what other way is CompTIA going to do this? They really made these vouchers for somebody who's a student who really can't afford a full voucher. They want to give you a break. You're paying enough for all of this. So one of the challenges is now, how do they find a way to limit it to just students? And this is the way they're going to do it for now. So we'll see what happens there with all of those things. I don't know if this is really going to work the way we expect that it's going to work, but that's up to CompTIA how they handle the sales on their site. And I think if they want to focus and limit it to students, that's probably one of the best ways to do it. So that's I think a good way to run through this. And of course, they also have limitations on the number you can buy, which was always there. For instance, you're limited to buying 2 of either product in a 6-month period, and total lifetime purchases for a product may not exceed 4. So you can't be the connection for all your friends getting vouchers. You can only do 4 of them in a lifetime. So that's where that comes from. That's where those details are. And I guess they found there was a little bit more abuse of the system than they would have hoped, and that's where they are. So another question from the chat room, Jason is asking, I'm looking to transition from another profession into IT in my late 40s with no prior hands-on experience. Not an unusual position you are in. A number of people that come to my site are transitioning from other types of career goals, career paths, and moving into information technology, and at many ages, and most of those people have no hands-on experience. Currently, I'm studying for Network Plus. It's an interesting entry-level choice. Once I pass my exam, what's the likelihood of getting an entry-level networking position? I don't know. This is the challenge, of course. It's never any one thing. You've got a number of things happening here. So you've got challenges that we kind of need to break out and see the differences. Let's first talk about just transitioning from one profession to another. You've got advantages and disadvantages. One of the disadvantages, you have no hands-on experience, but a lot of people get into IT with no hands-on experience. I got into IT with no hands-on experience. Everybody gets into IT with no hands-on experience, as it turns out. We've never done this before. So how do we get in there and do that? And that is really one of the challenges that you always get into with any job. Is I don't have the experience, but you won't give me a job because I don't have the experience. But the only way to get the experience is to have the job. There's the issue. It's the universal issue that's been around forever. One of the advantages is that in your particular case, you add on to this a previous career. So at least there's a job and responsibility that you had that you ostensibly that you can go back to and say, no, I had a great job. I was doing this. I know how to show up at work. I know how to work well with people. Here's things that we've done in the past. A lot of that does go a long way. So you at least have that you can talk about in an interview with someone. A lot of companies hire people with no hands-on experience intentionally because they can pay you less, obviously, and then teach you as you go. So sometimes taking one of these entry-level jobs where somebody is looking to teach you, it may be a little bit of a hit to your bottom line as you're trying to get in the door, but you're in the door. And from that point on, you can stay with that company. You can be there a year. You can learn all of these things. And then if you need to move up and out, you can go to a different company, or you can move up within your existing company. Part of the challenge with those is just getting that job and knowing what people are looking for. I highly, highly recommend you do more research on what people are looking for. So the question to me was, what's the likelihood of getting an entry-level networking position with a Network Plus? You should already know this. You should have already gone and mapped out all of the large companies in your area. Make a list. Get a list of the top 10. Get a list of the top 20. There's plenty of ways to list these things out. Go out to the sites that are posting these job openings, the Indeeds.com, the Monsters, the Career Builders, all of those little tiny sites also that have popped up as well, and start pulling down all the jobs out there for entry-level networking, entry-level help desk, entry-level whatever it is, help desk 1, or whatever they're calling it. And then see what the requirements are. List out the educational requirements, list out the certification requirements, if any, list out what they're expecting for practical experience, if any, and start mapping out what people are looking for. And you should be able to now build out a very good list now of everything that you would need to be able to figure out where to focus. So now you've got a list of the 20 biggest companies in your area. You know that half of them are expecting an A+ certification. You know the other half would have no certification requirements whatsoever, and only one of them is looking for Network Plus. I think that should give you a pretty good idea of where you should focus. Or it might be completely different. Maybe all 20 of them want someone who has Network Plus. I don't know. It's different in every geography. So that's why I'm going to throw this ball back to you and say, I'm not chasing that one. You've got to chase this one down because you're the one who's in your geography. You're the one who knows your area and can go about this. Now, another thing, and I'm going to pull the age card a little bit on this one, is in your late 40s, you've had prior experience with these other companies. I don't know what you were doing before, if you were working in a hospital, if you were doing transportation, if you were working for a company in accounting, and whatever it happens to be, every single job you've ever had has a technology component. If you were working in a lab in a hospital, being able to find the people in the IT department in a hospital, you would bring a remarkable bit of insight into the technology process. And in fact, you probably know people in IT in your company. These are great places to go. People prefer hiring somebody they know. So please, please, please find those people you already know. Take advantage of these relationships that you've made. People are happy to help you, by the way, people that know you. Don't be afraid to ask your friends, hey, is there anything open over in your company with IT? Do you know some of the IT people there I can talk to? Oh, yeah, let me set you guys up. We'll go to lunch. We'll do whatever. And I'll give you their number. Tell them I told you to call. We do that stuff all the time. Also, and I've mentioned this in other study groups, very often in these organizations, they prefer taking a referral from an employee over taking a referral from the outside. And they often pay their employees a referral fee if they hire that person and they stay there for a certain amount of time. So sometimes your friends are dying to get your resume and submit it because this can mean cash in their pocket. So that's a win-win. You get a job, they get a little finder's fee, and everybody goes home happy. And maybe they'll take you out on a nice dinner for that. That'd be nice. One of the challenges we have, this came up earlier in the chat, it was very early on in the study group, is we often have challenges with ageism in our industry. It's a real thing. In an entry-level position, it's really hard sometimes for someone who is over a certain age range to break in. Whether that's overt or not, whether it's something that people realize they're doing or don't realize they're doing, it still affects us. And so it's another opportunity for you to go back to people you know and have people who trust you and understand you and respect you for what you've done to be able to say, no, that's somebody we need in our organization. Make sure you get them on board and get them in place. That could mean an awful lot. I could not imagine going into that position now in my aged self and trying to convince somebody to put me on a help desk. That'd be difficult to do with no prior experience. Are we going to let the old guy in here on the help desk? Really? Does he know how to use a phone? Is he familiar? This is a website. This is a mouse. This is how it's going to be. So you do have to take that into account as well. Build out a good LinkedIn list. Get your friends on LinkedIn. Make sure they know what's going on. Make sure you attend your local user groups. Be familiar with your Cisco user group, your Microsoft user group. There's one in your area, almost certainly. And the people there are people who are hiring for these types of roles. It's good to just meet them. That's a long tail. That's a long plan to meet and get to know these people. But after a year, and you need to make that move to a new job, you can reach out to them and go, hey, I know you from the user group meeting. I'm looking to move now up in my current role of help desk and move into something more networking related. Is there anything in your organization that might fit that? Should I send you a resume? Let me know. That's perfectly reasonable to ask. There's nothing out of bounds to be able to do that. So that's my recommendation for you. It's kind of a lot. That was me talking a bit. Sorry about that. But that's a real challenge when you're trying to figure out those details. Get a strategy going. Stick to your strategy. It's never one thing. It's always multiple things you're putting together. And people ask me that all the time. I know we have a call. I'll go to just a moment, caller. But let me make one more point, is that people often ask, should I go to college or should I get a certification? That's not even a question. That doesn't even make sense. Should I drive a car? Should I eat an orange? What are you asking me? Those two things are so completely different in what they do. You need college, you need certification, you need some experience. You need to be able to speak well with someone. You need to be able to walk into a room and have a meeting. You need to be able to sit in an interview and explain things to someone in a way that makes sense. Sometimes you need to be able to do a whiteboard presentation. It just depends on what it is, but it's not a choice between those two things. You want both of those. And neither of those replaces the other. A formal education does not replace a certification. A certification, by the way, does not replace a formal education. Experience does not replace either of those either. When people will say, no, all you need is experience, don't need anything else. Actually, no, you need experience. Yes, you need an education. You need a certification. You need as much as you can. Why would you limit yourself to one of those? This is your career. You're trying to get a job. You're trying to impress people. You're trying to move up the ranks. Why would you ever limit yourself to something like that? It's never made sense to me. So make sure you go there. Oh, this is good. So Jacqueline says, many jobs I've seen, I'm guessing in your area, entry level just wants a high school diploma. Yes, A plus and an A plus. Fantastic. I can fit myself in. Now find a list of those, list them out and figure out the details. Now you know where you need to go. Let's go to the calls and see if I can make the call stuff work. This is my biggest challenge today. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Pat out of Middle Tennessee.
Welcome,
I
Pat.
have a quick question.
Sure.
Thank you. How do I gain experience if I don't have experience? Most jobs are looking for persons with experience. For instance, I just applied for a job that said they offer 3 to 7 weeks of training, and I needed to pass a Windows 7 Prove It test. Well, she called me back and told me I didn't pass it. So, I mean, how do I get my foot into the door to learn?
Well,
That's very frustrating.
That is frustrating. It is the catch-22 that we talked about earlier, which is they want experience, but you don't have a job, so therefore they won't hire you. But the only way to get the experience is to have the job. So it's a problem that has gone on since the beginning of jobs. This has been sort of a normal thing. Your particular example at least gives you some perspective of what employers are looking for that don't necessarily require you to have had a formal job with a company in your past. What they were looking for is to see how well you're familiar with the internals or the operation of a particular operating system. That necessarily, or that certainly would be easier if you had some direct experience on a help desk. That's what you did every day, all day, and you became so familiar with Windows 7 you could use it with your eyes closed. That would have helped. But at least with that particular employer, they were willing to hire you even if there was not a formal job in your work history. So in those particular cases, maybe that is a case where you want to build out a Windows 7 machine. You want to start working more with Windows 7 operating system. Maybe ask them if you can spend some time working Windows 7. When would they recommend for you to come back in and take the test again? They probably have a time frame or whatever that happens to be. But at least now you know what to expect going into that piece. There's a couple of other things I recommend. One is that some people think that experience means you got paid for it, but occasionally it doesn't. There are a number of organizations that need volunteer help, especially nonprofits. If you have some particular area where you are wanting to learn more about the computers, the operating systems, the hardware, whatever it happens to be, and some of these volunteer organizations are willing to take you in and work with their people to help you become more familiar with that, that's a good opportunity as well. I'll also say that a lot of this could also be self-taught. I've mentioned this before, so I'll bring this up again on the website modern.ie, MODERN, as in the modern day. Modern.ie, there is this is Microsoft's developer site. They have a tools pull-down menu that includes virtual machines where you can download Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10 all for free from their site. The only requirement is that you follow their licensing agreement, which means you will not use these operating systems as your production platform, that these are only for testing and only for types of development or non-production work. And that's a great place to go. You can download Windows 7 if you don't have it already. Download Windows 7, load it up, and now you can start playing around Windows 7. You can start learning where everything is. You can maybe even remember some of the things they put up with you, or they showed to you during the hands-on during your job interview, and try to run through a few of these things and get familiar with it yourself. So you've got a few places you could go to get through some of those and the details of those. So maybe that's a place to go as well. So you've got at least some options. And lastly, you might want to just find one of those jobs where they're not looking for direct experience right out of the gate. They may decide to teach you as they go, and then they won't put you through these tests. But those are, most employers, I think, are trying to find people that at least have a little bit of knowledge. And I think some of the information that you learn on the A+ exam helps with that as too. If you've gone through the 902 exam or you've gone through the 1002 exam objectives, you'll know a lot of that is focused on Windows 7 and Windows 10, now in the new version. That may be a good place to go to find out, what does this exam expect me to learn? Let me really go into the hands-on details with that using some of these virtual machines. Those might be some things to help you.
Okay.
When you are focusing on what they presented to you during this hands-on process, do you remember the types of things they were expecting you to be able to do? I missed her. She terminated already. She was done. She's tired of hearing me talk. I get it. So I'd love to get an idea of somebody who's been through one of those, because I'm sure these are very standardized processes. There's probably an HR organization that provides that as a service. Sorry about that. Provides that as a service so you can bring people in and run them through this sample test, and it takes it through. It's probably standardized everywhere. I'd love to do that. Another question in the chat room: are there entry-level jobs that don't require sitting behind a desk all day? Well, sure. Yeah, a lot of people think of help desk as you're in this enormous room. There's 500 people. You've got one of those headsets on. You have to learn this call center system, and you're just sitting there and taking calls or remote desktop in. But the reality is most help desk positions aren't anything like that. My first help desk position was with a corporation. It was a life insurance company, and we had a desk, but people would submit tickets, or they would call you, or you'd be handed a ticket, and they're saying this person's having a problem. So I would call them. I walk over to their desk. I would, they need some more, they need a replacement system. I'd go downstairs, we'd replace the system out. I was constantly moving. I was rarely at my desk. Now that I think about it, we had to do a summary at the end of the week on what we worked on and how much. Time tracking system. And the time tracking system, that was the one time I was at my desk, was with the time tracking system. The rest of the time, I was constantly moving. I was in the server room. I was setting up another workstation in the lab. We were doing this. We were doing that. I was trying to troubleshoot an application problem. It's not one where none of these jobs are all the same. They all have a little bit of overlap, but they're not all in a call center help desk environment. So you'll find those as well. But some of them are. Some of these very large companies, like the Verizons of the world, like the AT&Ts, they need somebody to do troubleshooting and tech support, and that's in a call center environment. But you can also learn a lot from that as well. And that gives you that heads up. You start learning the operating systems. You start learning how to use these systems. You start learning what's like to be in a call center. And then you start communicating with people. And if there's one thing that you could put on your resume that really makes a difference, it's the communication with people. It's surprising how much that is important in a job where the primary emphasis of the job is technology. But really it isn't. Really it's talking to people whenever you work through all of those. So there are some, and there are some where you don't talk to people at all. You're doing cable runs. They're just repairing a back room. You don't see many of those jobs though in the US or in North America where you're just in the back room working on computers all day. No, nobody does that. I say nobody does that. That's a rare job to find. Some people take me very literally when I say nobody does that. That's me going, nobody does that. That's hardly anyone does that. That's what I mean. Thank you, people on the internet, for reminding me that no, indeed, people do that. Yes, there is someone who does that in the world. Thank you. It's one of those things where there's a combination of things. Most jobs are right down the middle. Taking jobs, you're taking tickets, you're going away from your desk, you're doing some research, you're trying different things, you're pulling other people in. It's constant, constant, constant. How do you improve your person-to-person skills if you don't have any retail experience? Well, if you don't have retail experience, you don't hate people yet. So that's good. You got that going for you. People-to-people skills is something you never, ever master. You never get so good that you got it. But you can get good enough with it that you can use it as an advantage in your jobs. One of the jobs I started off very early on was a pre-sales technician type of role where I would be partnered with a salesperson. We represented a product or series of products. We would show up with a customer that needed this type of product, and we would explain why this product was better than anything else you could get on the market, and you should buy 100 of them. That was my job. But what was great is you get to actually install it. The person's evaluating it. You learn everything there is to know about it. It's technology, so you get to play around with it, but you also get to talk to people. And I think some of the best things that we did when we were going through this process of selling these products and showing people how cool they were is we got to go to lunch. We got to ask them about their family. We got to understand what they did over the interesting thing they did over the summer. The things that were unique to them. And we sit down at someone's desk and kind of see what they like to do. Oh, you like cars. Oh, you like football. Oh, you like, whatever it is. Those are interesting things too, because people usually go on interesting trips. They do interesting things associated with those. And you just get to learn to talk to people. In our particular roles, if you get into one of those jobs, they also love to send you to formal classes that teach you how to speak to people, which sounds ridiculous. Why in the world would I want to do that? But the reality is those turns out to be very useful classes. For example, one of the first things you learn when you go to one of these classes is how to stand, which I thought I knew how to stand. I thought I had that part down. I was very clear with the overall standing part of how standing works. No, I wasn't, because apparently there were things that not only I did, but many people do when they are presenting, when they're talking to people, that they do with their hands, that they put their hands here like this, or they hold them down and slump their shoulder. And they taught us, no, why don't you stand with your arms to your side and look at me for about 10 seconds. And it's weird. You stand there with your arms at your side. You're not holding anything. You think you want to fidget with something. And they say, how does that feel? And I go, that's pretty uncomfortable. And they say, really? Because when we looked at you, you looked just fine. But it's perception in a lot of these and having those things there. So sometimes it's a informal knowledge and getting used to talking with people. Sometimes it is a formal class that you take to have this person-to-person set of skills. But very often it is one where you really do have to work at it. And there's plenty of YouTube videos and classes online and books you can read about communicating with people. Sometimes it's just knowing what to say or how to start the conversation or how to ask the question. If you're one talking, then you're doing it wrong. You're the one, ironically, the way that people say that you're a great talker is you ask a lot of great questions to them. Oh, I saw you've got the speedboat there. Do you have a speedboat? Do you watch the speedboat races? What's going on with that? Oh yeah, we flew out to blah, blah, blah. Oh, I've always wanted to go there. Where did you stay somewhere interesting? If I went there, what would you say I should do? There's all these things where you just talk, where you ask questions and have them talk to you. And then at the end of it, you think you're the one who seems to be the person who talks the best. You're just the person who asks the best questions. And you really do have to be interested in what they're doing. Don't fake it. That's not cool. Don't do that. Don't be that person. No, I'm really interested in what you're saying. No, you're not. Not even, you're on your phone. You're asking the question, you're on your phone. You don't know. So the person who asked about about changing careers at 44, you stepped away. Well, you're going to need to rewind back to the beginning of the hour and go through that piece and see if you can step through the details of that. Presentations are good. It's the ironic part. What they've always said is that people are more afraid of public speaking than they are of dying, which means that at a funeral, most people would rather be the one in the ground. And that's the sort of the old joke of this. It's pretty accurate though. It's not too far from the truth. Public speaking is a little bit of a challenge. There are in your areas though, if public speaking is something you really want to get good at public speaking. Did I just say that? You want to get good at public speaking, don't listen to me. You instead want to look up the local Toastmasters in your area. This is an organization that focuses on public speaking. So they will bring you in and they'll teach you public speaking. You'll of course be speaking in front of people, but nobody in the room is going to make fun of you. And I got a job eventually that was effectively public speaking. I was a the sort of the representative for the company talking about the products. I would fly around the world. I would land in a place. They'd send me to Chicago. I go to Chicago, go to the hotel, wake up in the morning, go to a trade show, speak in front of 200 people, talk about what this thing that I had, pack up my laptop, go to the plane, go to Minneapolis, get off the plane, go to a hotel, next day go to a company, talk to a group of executives about this thing, probably a different presentation, go back to the airport, go to the next place, go to London, go to Australia, go to wherever it happened to be, go to Germany, go to Thailand, go to Canada. I went as far as Canada sometimes. So that was kind of fun because you're talking, you're explaining, but you have the concept of here's what's really interesting about this. You don't have to be Tony Robbins, and you don't have to be so dynamic that you're trying to start a religion. You're just trying to explain to people what this is like without having them all go to sleep, tell a couple good jokes, you're in and out kind of thing. It's pretty fun to be able to do that. I think that's where in IT, in technology in general, people don't think that people in technology have people skills. But the reality is everybody I knew in technology had people skills. You very rarely would run across someone who really was not comfortable being around people. But it was no more statistically valid than the general population, quite honestly, for this. So that's the real key, I think, is just keep doing it. My first call in a formal speaking with the press, because I did a lot of talks to the press. I did a lot of junkets. We talked to the press. We go to a city and talk to all the press, or I would be on the phone with the press or with analysts. And the first time I did, I had this set of notes. I was really nervous. This is my first job doing this. I didn't want to screw it up. I'm in a taxi in New York, heading from somewhere to somewhere. I don't know. And I'm talking. I got this little 15-minute window to talk to these analysts. And I get on the phone and I drop the cards, and the taxi's dark. It's a New York taxi. Don't know if you've ever been in a New York taxi. I'm questioning what's on the floor. And my cards are now on the floor. I'm on the phone with them on my headset, and I'm trying to keep track of what I'm doing. And I said, I'm so sorry. I'm in the back of a taxi. I just dropped all my notes. I even told them, I was very honest. Just dropped all my notes. I'm sounding like an idiot right now because I'm an idiot right now. Let me see if I can regroup here and at least give you some idea of what we're doing with this. And I finished up the 15 minutes. It was painful and awful. And I immediately called my boss afterwards and says, I don't know if you really made the best decision by putting me in this role right now. I think I just screwed that one up pretty good. But we got through it, but that was not a shining moment. And had you been on the call, you would be questioning it as well. And we had kind of a laugh over it. And she said, don't worry, you're going to get better at these things. You'll figure it out. You just keep doing them. Don't stop. You've got the job. You're stuck now. You're working for me. So we're going to keep doing these things. And she was right. I got better at this. She was one of the best bosses I ever had. We got through this, and it got to be automatic. You get to know the people also. Our industry is very small. You think there's these millions of people working. I thought there were. It's just people you run into over and over. And you talk to them over and over, and you get to be more comfortable talking to them. Everything doesn't have to be a formal presentation. Hello and welcome to this presentation of Professor Messer's A+ study group. It doesn't have to be that way, especially if you know the people you're talking to. Like, oh, it's so good to see you again. When did we talk last? Was it New York? Was it the thing with the cards? Okay, this is going to be better, I promise. Here's what we're going to talk about today. And then it's more relaxed. That's what you just have to keep doing. Do it over and over and over and over and over again. And it will get to a point where I don't know that the nervousness goes away completely, but you're just fine walking onto a stage where there's 1,000 people in the audience versus walking into a room with 5. Sometimes the room with 5 is a little more difficult. It depends on who they are. But you have to have enough confidence in yourself to be able to do it. And the only way you do that is to just keep doing it over and over and over again. So there's my story of completely screwing it up and somehow still managing to keep the job. If I can do it, anybody can do it. That brings us to an end of another hour. Can you believe that? Of our study group. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being on the live stream. Thank you for your calls. Thank you for your questions in the chat room. Although you're not able to rewind the stream, all of my streams are available to watch immediately afterwards. As soon as we're done here, there will be a little bit of processing that YouTube does, and then suddenly the entire video will be available to you. So don't worry about that piece. It will be all there waiting. And if you wait about a day, the entire study group will have timestamps and documentation of everything we did during the entire event. Sometimes that's quick if you ever want to jump around to one of those. You can go back to any of my study groups. Every single YouTube video description of every study group has that on there for the last couple of years or so. We've been doing that. Didn't know if you knew that was there. That can become really handy. So thank you for that as well. We got plenty of these. Come back in 2 days. On Thursday, we're doing another study group for the 1002. We're just going to keep doing these until you're just tired of this. You're just sick of seeing me. Maybe that will happen. I hope it doesn't. We've got plenty more content, though, and I'm more than happy to bring it to you. I would not be able to do this without you being here. Thank you so much. We've got plenty more on Thursday we'll go through. I look forward to seeing you then as well. Until then, thanks for being here. I'll see you next time on the A+ Study Group.